Welcome to the Inventor's Friend System for Success. My name is Dan Kennedy. I'm not going to spend much time talking about me. I assume you're familiar with me or you wouldn't have invested in this learning system. However, there are just a few key points I want to make about my background, the extensive experience behind the information in this system. First of all, I am not a theorist. I didn't make this stuff up. I have made millions with ideas for myself and my clients, but I do not have some magic Midas touch. About 20 years ago, for example, I went corporately and personally bankrupt, starting over dead broke, living in a crummy little apartment, and barely able to afford that. I have had my failures in the past, and although overall, fortunately, these days I'm doing very well financially, the nature of my business involves almost constant failure. As a direct marketer, bringing new ideas, products, and services to market, I have more misses than hits, and I think anybody who professes to have it the other way around will lie about lots of other things too. My winners more than make up for the losers. Still, everything we do is only part science, part unpredictability, and that's just the way it is. Everything I'm going to share with you in this system is based on actual practical experience from real successes as well as real failures, the real world. In the past few years, for my businesses and for my private clients combined, I've been integrally involved in the sale of well over $200 million worth of products through the methods discussed in this system in at least 68 different types of businesses and industries. And I'm becoming known as a millionaire maker because some clients go from idea to millions the very first year or two with these methods. The second thing I'd like you to know is that I put my money where my mouth is. Although I have a busy consulting practice, although I travel a lot and have many speaking engagements each year, I'm not just an outsider playing with other people's businesses and other people's money. I use my methods in my own businesses with my own money every day. Third, I'd just like you to know philosophically that I devoutly believe anybody and everybody can get rich in America today. I believe everybody has the necessary spark of creativity, the problem-solving ability to invent a successful product, service, or business, and I believe there is such an abundance of opportunity in our country that the only thing really and truly holding anyone back or shutting anyone out is lack of initiative and persistence. Of course, I cannot provide those things. Those things are internally developed. They come from the inside out. What I can give you, though, is a condensation of experience, experimentation, and information that should save you an enormous amount of time and effort, and that is what this system is all about. Before moving ahead, there is one big general point that I want to make bluntly. A number of years ago, my dad gave me a set of cufflinks he'd worn for years. They're black and gold squares with raised letters, and the letters are YCDBSOYA. They stand for You Can't Do Business Sitting on Your Ass. A friend of mine and brilliant direct marketer, Gary Halbert, says motion beats meditation. In other words, you've got to do something. And doing just about anything is better than doing nothing. This is a recurring theme you'll be hit with throughout all the materials in this system. Even in the master's interview tapes, you'll get the same message from other highly successful inventors. Most of the people who succeed at taking their idea and pushing it upstream are what I call entrepreneurial inventors, as opposed to passive inventors. That means they are not the dreamers I often encounter when I speak to inventors clubs, coming up with a zillion ideas, one right after the other, but never taking the next step with any of them. That means they are not the all-too-often victimized delegators who want somebody else to take all the risk, buy or license their idea, do all the work, and make them rich. The entrepreneurial inventor combines his idea with business building, and that is the most realistic approach. That is the person I can be of the greatest help to. At the very least, it takes great advocacy to get anything done. No one can be a champion for your product like you can. Just recently, at my client, the Guthrie-Renker Corporation, I was involved in getting a deal done and green-lighting the development of an infomercial for a particular type of product. I can tell you that previously, this very same idea and comparable product had been presented by at least a dozen other people, and they had all been rejected and driven off. But this person, who finally made a deal, kept coming back and coming back, pitching the idea again, providing more information, more proof of success in other marketing environments. If you think you can stick to the ideas and have somebody else do everything else, I'm afraid you will be forever stuck sitting on the sidelines watching other people get rich. To succeed, you are going to become a skilled salesperson, a marketing person, a negotiator, and entrepreneur. Now let's start by dispelling some popular myths about inventing that, if not understood as myths, will certainly spell defeat and disappointment. Number one is the better mousetrap myth. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, if a man can write a better book, preach a better sermon, or make a better mousetrap than his neighbor, though he builds his house in the woods, the world will make a beaten path to his door. This is probably the most common and deadly myth of them all. Maybe it was once valid, but no more. It leads one to believe that if he can come up with a better product, then success is guaranteed without much or without any effort on the part of the inventor, and nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, if you take the mousetrap invention itself, you'll find that there are more than 4,400 mousetraps that have been patented. Roughly 40 new mousetrap patents are granted each year, and approximately 10 times that many are turned away. Of the 4,400, only 24 have ever made a penny for the inventors in the marketplace. If you want to be successful with your invention, and by that I mean make money, you must make market potential. You must create salability for the product. Marketing must be your primary concern. A patent is worthless and it's expensive if you cannot sell your product in the marketplace. Remember that inventions are not bought, they are sold. Marketing is the biggest factor in the success of any product. Number two, simply fill a need and you will make millions. Find a need and fill it. Well, a lot more goes into product success these days than recognizing a need and inventing a product to fill that need. Recognition and invention are only the first steps in the development of a money-making product. Research, protecting the idea, developing prototypes, getting the idea evaluated, gaining government approvals in some cases, manufacturing, licensing, pricing, financing, test marketing are all parts of the process. Furthermore, needs are really not as important as our desires, and many people have gone broke with products that fill needs but are not particularly desired. Thomas Edison once said that bringing a successful invention to market takes only 2% inspiration and 98% perspiration. This process will not be as easy as you think, will probably take longer than you think, and will require more persistence than you think. Number three, you can't make money without a patent. Having a patent does not make your product saleable. The truth is that many millions are made on products that are never patented. The demand of the marketplace for your product at the right price through the right means of distribution is what will make you money. Less than 1% of all products being sold today are patented, while only 10% of the products patented ever make any money for their inventors. A patent is no guarantee or even indicator of product success. Number four, if my product has a patent, then nobody can copy it. Having a patent does not prevent anybody from copying your product and even making millions by doing so. A patent only gives you the right to sue the infringing individual or company. The patent office, the trademark office, they do not police the marketplace. It's up to you, the patent holder, to police the marketplace. And that can be a very expensive and time-consuming proposition. Patents and other forms of protection have their place and are important, but are not panaceas or guarantees of profit. Number five, if I tell someone about my invention, they will surely steal it. If you follow some pretty simple steps to document and protect your idea, you can avoid many problems, and you can stop being paranoid that everybody and anybody is out to steal your precious idea. There are times when it is necessary for you to tell others about your idea so you can do research, so you can develop it, so you can get prototypes made, so you can get some marketplace evaluation of the product. If you live in a state of paranoid paralysis and never do anything about developing your product because someone might steal it, then I can guarantee you only one thing. You'll never make a dime off of your idea. Having said that, I must warn you about the biggest black mark on the invention industry. These are invention marketing scams. They come under different titles, different labels: invention marketing companies, invention brokers, invention promotion companies, invention development firms. Most of us in the industry refer to them as parasites. It's estimated that 25,000 inventors each year get scammed for up to $10,000 apiece by these operators. The founder of the Inventors Awareness Group says that inventors lose more than $200 million a year to these con artists. About 80% of all people claiming to help inventors build a business, market their product, or raise capital are con men, beggars, thieves, or incompetents, according to a professor from George Mason University. We have provided, in print, a considerable amount of information for you about how to detect a scam, how to identify a legitimate versus an illegitimate invention marketing company. My advice to you is to stay completely away from this method of developing and marketing your products. Take the responsibility yourself. The Inventor's Friend system you are listening to and reading will equip you with the know-how to market your invention 100% more effectively than anybody in one of these so-called invention marketing companies will ever do. Included in the manual are a number of articles that warn you about these companies. You may also contact the Federal Trade Commission at 202-326-2222 for their free information, Facts for Consumers about invention promotion firms. Now let's move on to the 14 best ways that I know of for converting an idea into a fortune. The notes and exhibits for these are in sections 2, 3, 4, and 5 of your manual. The first, and I suppose the most common path, is to take your product, service, or business idea and use it as the basis for a true business of your own. There are people who will tell you that the days of ordinary small business leading to wealth are gone, that these days costs and taxes and competition and negative factors make ownership of most small businesses into nothing more than a job, but facts tell a different story. According to research done by Thomas Stanley, a professor from Georgia State University and author of the definitive book Marketing to the Affluent, you are 10 times more likely to become a millionaire if you own your own business than as someone else's employee. Further, a lot of research indicates you just don't need a revolutionary new idea or innovation to get rich in business. In fact, the businesses yielding the most millionaires are very mundane. They include plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, contracting and home repair, wholesalers, industrial equipment companies, small manufacturers, service businesses like dry cleaners, and sales-oriented businesses like insurance agencies. This tells us that rather mundane businesses done a little better, marketed a little better, can still build fortunes. These small business millionaires tend to be rather ordinary folks, not flaunters of their wealth, and have no starting advantage over you. If you have a sound idea and a heartfelt passion for a particular kind of business, it can make you a millionaire. And I can give you a big tip if this is the path you're on or that you might choose. The wealth secret is turning an ordinary business into an extraordinary business. Just as an example, I was fascinated on a visit to Atlanta when an advertising colleague of mine, Gene Dowell, took me to a place called The Varsity for lunch. Now, this is a hamburger joint, but on a grand scale. It has its own 3-story parking garage, an endless counter with dozens of lines, hundreds of people up there getting their food, maybe 1,000 or more there at lunchtime. Room after room after room after room, with school desks where you sit to eat, with TV sets playing soap operas, sports broadcasts, CNN, and so on. You could drop a half a dozen McDonald's into this place and have room left over. It reminds me of the Ron John Surf Shop in Daytona Beach, Florida. Once a small beach and surf shop, now about a 10,000 square foot, 24-hour-a-day superstore, one of the top 10 tourist attractions in the area. A hamburger joint, a t-shirt store taken to epic proportions. Of course, size is not the only worthy idea. It's the principle at work here that is important, turning an ordinary business into an extraordinary business with innovation and marketing. Method number 2 is franchising your innovation. My guess is that more fortunes have been made by franchisors in the last 2 decades than by any other single type of entrepreneur. The gist of success here is a business model that works, a system that is largely a no-brainer, and of course the ability and resources to get legally registered and equipped to sell franchises. Fred DeLuca is a great example of this wealth-building approach. He developed a successful sub-sandwich shop and saw the inherent advantages of putting other people in that same type of fast food business. He created a business where there's no cooking, no ovens, no special exhaust fans and ductwork, simple training, and that is much less costly than just about any other kind of restaurant to open. In a short number of years, his Subway chain has grown to over 10,000 franchised outlets. Setting aside the initial franchise fees, assume that each store only yields $10 a day in royalties back to Fred's parent company. That's $100,000 a day, or $36 million a year. That's the power of franchising. To learn more about all the different types of franchisors and franchises there are, you can find the most recent annual Franchise 500 issue of Entrepreneur Magazine at your public library. You can also contact the International Franchise Association in Washington, D.C. To learn more about what it takes to become a franchisor, you can attend seminars sponsored by FranCorp, which are usually advertised in Entrepreneur Magazine.
This is the end of Side 1. Please turn the cassette over for Side 2.
Everybody has had the experience of throwing out ties that are too wide or too narrow, or other clothes that have somehow gone out of style, only to see them back in style a few years after you throw them out. The line from a song, "Everything old is new again," seems to apply over and over again in America. It seems that just about everything has more than one moment in the sun, with the possible exception of those Nehru jackets I bought. And there are fortunes made by recycling what was hot once to be hot again. The toy industry has pretty much gone high-tech, yet a lot of money was made a few years ago bringing the old Gumby character back. Restaurants set up like 1950-ish diners with little jukeboxes on every table, waitresses on roller skates, and so on, like the Johnny Rockets chain or the Ed DeBevick's diners, got hot in the last few years. Retro is hip. The movie industry has had mixed results with putting the old onto the big screen. The Batman franchise, a huge success, but The Shadow went nowhere. Mission Impossible was a huge success. The Flintstones, with live actors, a dud. The Brady Bunch, good enough for a sequel, and a big screen Green Acres is in the works. The baby boomers are willing to buy nostalgia. Maybe there's a way to tie your idea to something from the past, ready to shine again. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to license some long-dead cultural icon and profit by breathing new life into it. Obviously, there's a great deal of money to be made with novelty products. It's an area I've never personally dealt with, except way back when I was a sales rep for a publishing company called Price Stern Sloan, best known for their multi-million copy selling games called Mad Libs, invented by Roger Price and Larry Sloan. We had hits with novelty books like the Push-Button Telephone Songbook and an astrology book, You Were Born on a Rotten Day. I saw then the selling power of stores like Spencer Gifts. Today, many novelty products are sold through Spencer's, card and gift stores, and catalogs like What on Earth. Sitting on my bookshelf, for example, is a little tin can about the size of a juice can, labeled Canned Bear, with a picture of a grizzly bear on its label, and Canned Beaver, with a picture of a beaver chewing a tree on its label. Inside the cans are tiny stuffed animals. These cans are sold in gift shops all over Canada and the Pacific Northwest as souvenirs. I paid $13.95 for mine. The can and the label, manufactured in quantity, cost maybe $2, perhaps less. The stuffed animal, $1, and maybe there's a buck in miscellaneous costs, $4 in total, against a wholesale of $6 to $7. And this is not a short-lived fad novelty. This is one that keeps its place on the shelves and keeps selling year after year after year. Oh, and by the way, this is not the kind of product you protect with a patent. The protections here are label copyrights and logo trademarks. By far, though, my personal favorite area of opportunity is direct marketing. In old terminology, the mail order business. This can provide distribution for just about any type of product, even including novelty items. It is ideal for information products, and there are many ways to get a foothold in direct marketing without spending a small fortune doing it. Information products, by the way, are especially appealing to me and to many of my clients because they lend themselves to direct marketing, to mail order, and because they have low development costs, low investment requirements, and require minimal inventories to service a business. Everything I know about making money with information products is included in a manual called The Ultimate Information Entrepreneur, available from Inventor's Friend or my office. Now let me talk a bit about my personal odyssey to making money with this combination of mail order and information. You are going to find that many experts tell you to find products or start businesses that you are passionately in love with. I'll echo that advice, but with a little warning. Let me tell you a little bit about my story. I sort of fell in love with the self-improvement and personal growth and success education business in the mid-1970s. Like many people who become professional speakers or workshop leaders or authors, I discovered Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale, Glenn Turner and his Dare to Be Great program, and others, and they had profound impact on my life. And I became eager to share my discoveries with everybody. Operating under the assumption that the world was eagerly waiting for me to arrive and share all of this, I quickly ran through a couple of $100,000. Gradually, I came to understand a whole host of factors that I won't bore you with here that together make personal growth one of the toughest things to sell on earth. Just for the record, many of the really big successes in this field have twisted, you might even say perverted, the process. Est, for example, created cult-like dependence. Glenn Turner tied his into a pyramid selling process that was hastily outlawed. Anyway, I came to grips with the fact that what I was in love with was a very difficult business. The other thing that I knew and understood and was adept at, was truly expert at, was marketing, specifically direct marketing. You might call it my second passion. With 20/20 hindsight, for some glaringly obvious reasons, this is a much easier thing to sell. My expertise in this area, communicated through consulting and seminars, books, tapes, and other media, yields, or at least can yield, quickly, clearly measurable results in dollars and cents. So over about a decade-long period, I found my way to putting teaching and selling self-improvement on the shelf and putting teaching and selling very practical, money-making information on the front burner. And I basically went from being very poor to very rich. What is the moral of all that? The thing that you love may not be the basis for a good business. Then you need to look at what you like. One of the things that I seem to have a real knack for is platform selling products from the stage in the seminar environment. I enjoy developing and perfecting such presentations. I understand it. I'm good at it. So that has been part of my speaking activity for years. And I've applied it to many diverse businesses. Sale of self-defense programs, time management systems, marketing and management services to doctors, even investment real estate. The skills grew out of my work in self-improvement seminars, but applying them to these other businesses is infinitely more lucrative. The moral there is that you can take something you love doing and do very well and apply it to a different business in order to succeed financially. Richard Sutphin is a very talented, effective, direct response advertising copywriter, but he has no love at all for the advertising business and in fact fled it. His other interest was with the metaphysical. By matching the two, he developed Valley of the Sun Publishing, one of the largest mail-order marketers in the world of metaphysical, new age, and self-hypnosis products. Now he writes ad copy only for his own business and loves doing it. I think it's very important to value your own skills and your experience in choosing new products or businesses, but to be careful not to get trapped. Jeff Paul has created a $200,000 a month home-based business by creating and selling information products to serve financial planners and insurance agents. Based on his own experience as a certified financial planner, even though he hated being a certified financial planner. Years ago, I had a client who did millions of dollars in business with my guidance selling theft control information to retailers. Guess what his background was? He was a reformed thief. Not long ago, I worked on a direct response project with a guy who could do only one thing. He knew how to find and catch fish. That's what he loved doing. That's what he could do. And that's about it. Now he takes people out in week-long fishing workshops at a couple $1,000s each. He has videotapes he sells about his methods, and he's developing a line of fishing lures. It so happens he got his hands on a very responsive market. Fishermen will do just about anything to catch more or bigger fish. There's a famous speech, Acres of Diamonds, that tells the story of a guy who sells everything he owns, including his family home, and goes off roaming the world in search of diamonds. The fellow who buys his house digs up his backyard, for some reason, and uncovers a huge diamond field. Don't turn your back on your own backyard of work experience, education, hobbies, personal interests, and knowledge to go roaming around looking for a hot new product idea. Value your own skills and experience. Beyond that, I believe that doing research is the single most important skill and action for finding or creating products and turning product and business ideas into fortunes. Just yesterday, I consulted for a full day with a fellow with the beginnings of a good business idea, an intelligent and educated man who, since graduating from college 15 years ago, has not set foot in a public library. Well, I'm here to tell you that the public library, which is free, is one of your biggest and best business assets. In most major cities, main public libraries these days, you can access their entire periodical files through a computer, and you can do the most amazing research tasks. Let's say you're interested in the aviation field, and you have an idea for a new product for private pilots and airplane owners. You can sit down at the library's computer, follow simple instructions, and punch in private pilot, airplanes, pilot schools, and so forth, and up will come every magazine article, trade magazine article, newsletter, and other print reference related to that topic. You can take that list of the stacks and access a wealth of information in a hurry, and that's just the beginning. To research a particular business, you might want to check out the yellow pages in a variety of cities to see how these businesses advertise, what promises they make, or to find vendors or suppliers or prospects. Again, at the library, you can do this for free. Newspapers are a terrific source of information and ideas. Articles may yield product ideas or important context. Classified ads may reveal new products, suppliers, or opportunities. Again, you can find many cities' newspapers and business journals at the library. Also, reading both USA Today and the Wall Street Journal, as well as the weekly tabloids, are musts for the idea person. If you are traveling to a city on business or to go to a trade show, a review of that city's yellow pages and newspapers in advance will probably give you businesses you want to visit, contacts to make, and will make your trip more enjoyable. Trade magazines are a very important source of information. Every business, every type of product has its own trade magazines and journals. This is one of the ways I get up to speed as a consultant, working with a client in a business unfamiliar to me. When I got involved in the retail theft control business, I immediately went to the library and went through a year's back issues of magazines like Supermarket Business and Convenience Store News. When I worked with a client in the gun show business, it's off to the library to go through gun consumer and gun industry periodicals. I worked with a client in home building, it's Professional Builder magazine. I bought an entire business one year because I read about it in a trade magazine. Trade shows are very important too. I try to go every year or every other year to the Consumer Electronics Show, at least one closeout industry show, and every year to the American Booksellers Association show, for ideas, for what's new, what's selling, what can I knock off, what can I buy and resell, what can I use as a premium, who can I do business with. Like the trade magazines, there's at least one show for virtually every product category, every kind of business. If you're thinking about doing something with golf or fishing or tennis or bowling, for example, there are specific shows and there are sporting goods industry shows. In your manual, you'll find a list of sources of trade show schedules and related information. Directories of trade shows are available at your library. You can also get information from trade associations. And associations are usually great sources for all sorts of statistical data, vendors, suppliers, case histories, and so on. And you can find the Encyclopedia of Associations at the library, too. One year at the Consumer Electronics Show, I found a nifty little travel alarm clock and flashlight that could be imprinted with my company name and logo at the ridiculously low cost of $2 each. We used those as client Christmas gifts that year, and years later, people keep thanking me for giving them this excellent little item. At a gift industry show, I got the idea of hiring an artist to create original art prints to be sold to the customers of one of our companies, and that made us tens of thousands of dollars. At another show, I got the idea for a new type of product package that saved our company about $50,000 a year for several years in a row. If you want to do research on markets, then you start with SRDS, the Standard Rate and Data Service directories, which are also available at main libraries. In these directories, you can snoop inside most companies' mailing lists of their subscribers, customers, even their leads. You can, for example, find out how many people subscribe to boating magazines, how many buy books on boating, how many buy other boating-related products, what they spend, how often they buy, how many renew versus how many lose interest, how many are old, young, men, women, have credit cards, and on and on. You can also get very current information about new lists, databases, and media in trade journals like DM News, Target, Zip, and Direct Marketing, available, where else? At your library. By the way, some of these directories are very expensive, so it's unlikely you'll want to subscribe or buy them, even though the convenience of having them in your home or office is terrific. My friend Mike Roth discovered something I would never have thought of. Many libraries will cheerfully sell their old directories for just a few bucks when they replace them with newer ones. He bought an entire set of 2-year-old SRDS directories from his local library for just a few dollars. I am amazed at people who go through all the steps of creating a product, preparing literature, getting into marketing, who never do any real research. This is the entrepreneurial joke: ready, fire, aim. Most people would be well served by setting aside their brainstorm for a month and gathering every ounce of relevant information they can find. And incidentally, never lose sight of the fact that it is the market and then the marketing that creates success, much more often than it is the product from its own power. Very few products have that kind of inherent power. I say it again. It is the market and then the marketing that creates success, much more often than it is the product.
This is the end of side 1. Please turn the cassette over for side 2.
Rich DeVos and J. Van Andel started Amway in 1959 with a single product, a liquid cleanser that had already been around the block and failed several times in the marketplace. This product did hundreds of different jobs at different dilutions. It was highly concentrated, so when you put it on a store shelf, nobody knew what it was. It looked like the other cleaning liquids, but it cost 5 times more. This product required personal physical demonstration to communicate its value. It was their marketing method that made the product. Similarly, the juicer was around in stores as a kitchen appliance, a slow-selling kitchen appliance, for years, until the juice man hit the TV airwaves with his now famous infomercials. Joe Sugarman made fortunes taking electronic gadgets that could not be sold in retail, creating copy-intensive long-form ads for them and advertising them in the airline magazines. I could fill a book with such examples. All of this is important to keep in mind as you do your homework. And I'm going to give you one other huge money-making secret to keep firmly in mind as you do research and creatively put together the right combination of a hungry, responsive, reachable market, a hot product, great offer, and effective media. This secret is explained best by self-publishing and mail-order expert Ted Nicholas as the hidden benefit. You will often turn an otherwise dead product into a big fat winner by identifying and promoting its hidden benefit rather than the product itself. 2 examples from Ted's experience. Both were information products, but the principle is universal. First, one of his most successful ads was headlined, "The Ultimate Tax Shelter." But what it sells is his book, How to Form Your Own Corporation Without a Lawyer. 90% of the ad dealt with the enemy, high taxes, and the concept of creating a tax shelter. But what he was really selling was a book on self-incorporation. Second, he advertised asset protection. In this campaign, he talked in terms of what will you do when they seize your house and savings because of a lawsuit against your business. But the product being sold was a loose-leaf notebook of fill-in-the-blank corporate forms. When you study these examples, you see that the products are almost incidental to the sale, certainly not the cause of the sale. In a very successful infomercial for a particular pain-relieving device, one of the hidden benefits I chose to emphasize was the lack of greasy, oily, smelly stuff common to pain-relieving gels and ointments. Look for the hidden benefit in whatever you set out to market. This strategy alone is worth the price of admission. I suppose the biggest obstacle most people face with a new product, or even with a tested product, is the high cost of advertising. By any standards, media advertising is expensive. I just bought, for example, 3 measly column inches in a national business magazine for $4,000. The very nature of the direct marketing business, of course, is that marketing is the biggest expense. And as a general rule, that's a big plus. After all, would you rather have your capital consumed in buildings, equipment, overhead, inventory, and employees, or largely devoted to directly causing sales? For me, the answer is obvious, and that's why I prefer direct marketing. But the flip side is that you need a big bankroll to make big things happen. So we have to look at innovative alternatives that minimize the cash investment required for marketing your products. Conceptually, we could classify this as a message about strategic alliances. In a good strategic alliance, Each participating party brings something to the deal that the other party lacks. Combined, they have the ability to do things they could not do separately and individually. In his research work for the perennially best-selling book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill found that business leaders form such alliances purely to share their experiences and insights, called by Andrew Carnegie mastermind groups. But the principle is certainly not limited to this one application. These days in business, strategic alliances are in. In mail order and direct marketing, the most expensive asset you can possibly create is the base of customers. It's also the most valuable. In other words, the distribution. So the way to cut costs is to somehow form alliances with people in companies who already own that asset and will let you take your product to their customers rather than you having to create your own customers from scratch. But even if you do not have capital problems, but especially if you have a proven winner of a product, advertising that works, a track record, you should still aggressively pursue every parasitic distribution opportunity available. Why? Why not? With catalogs, for example, each catalog has its own set of customers, its own circle of influence, with a small amount of catalog-to-catalog overlap, but a large amount of unduplicated and important influence. So having your product in 20 catalogs does not take dollars from one and give it to the other. It doesn't diminish sales, it increases sales. In the direct response TV business, we're learning that having a product in Sam's Club and Price Club does not cannibalize our infomercial sales, and the infomercial sales do not take away from QVC or HSN. There's a saying at the racetrack, you never bet enough on a winning horse. Translated to business, when you have a winner, you want to exploit it to the fullest as rapidly as you possibly can. I am very big on what I call piggybacking or parasitic relationships, at feeding off someone else's customers and, if possible, their resources. One of my clients has an arrangement with a very successful seminar company to follow that company's speakers into each town, be promoted by the previous seminar, and then do their thing, sharing profits with the promoter. This way, my client puts $0 at risk, makes no investment in advertising or promotion, and does not even have to pay any attention to those aspects of a business. All the client has to do is get his instructors to the locations and sell. Now, they could instead advertise, publicize, mail, promote, and market to fill their own seats from scratch. And overall, they might very well eke out an extra 5 or 10 percentage points of profit, but they might take some losses too. This same strategy works for the mail order business two ways. One, by selling your products to and through established catalog companies, and two, through the use of endorsed mailings. Let's talk about catalogs first. Some years ago, I met an Indian here in Arizona who was handcrafting beautiful turquoise inlaid knives and having them sold through local gift and souvenir shops. He was eking out a living. Then he introduced that knife to the Sharper Image catalog people. Today you can see the knife advertised in the Sharper Image catalogs issue after issue, month after month, year after year. And that one connection has made this Indian craftsman wealthy at a rapid-fire pace. Of course, he could have built his own mail-order business from scratch. He could have run small space ads in Hunting, Sportsman, and other magazines, produced and mailed out brochures and catalogs, gradually built a mailing list of responsive customers, and of course requiring new and different products along the way. Ultimately, he might operate that kind of business at about a 500% gross markup. Make an item for $5, sell it for $25. But his cost of sale could easily be 50%, 60%, or 70% of gross. You might ask yourself, why go through all that when I can just feed off of the hundreds of thousands of customers the Sharper Image already has in place? And that would be a very smart question. Consider the typical economics of such a deal. If an item costs $5 to make and sells for $25, the catalog company will buy it for 50 or 60% off of retail. A $15 profit for them, $10 to the craftsman. His margin is only $2.50 less per item than it would be running his own direct marketing business. He's still getting double his costs, and he has no risks and no capital tied up in advertising. One of my companies had tens of thousands of cassette programs sold for it by a particular catalog company. They bought the $29 item from us for $12. It costs us a little less than $5 to manufacture, and we had no risk, no advertising, no marketing to worry about, nothing to do but deliver the product and get paid. In your manual, you'll find a list of directories and resources for finding and finding out about all the established catalogs and their owners and managers in America. There are hundreds of major catalogs, thousands of smaller catalogs, and most products can find a home in a handful to 100 of these. Now, how difficult is it for you to place products with these catalogs? Not as difficult as you might think. Keep in mind that these catalogs are making the bulk of their money from going back to the same customers over and over and over again. So they desperately need new products. They need you. If you're going to attack this yourself, you'll want to assemble a hit list of catalogs you believe your product matches up well with. Then get copies of these catalogs. Do your homework. Check out their customer statistics in SRDS. And finally, develop a logical, persuasive argument as to why your product will appeal to that particular catalog company's customers. You'll make that argument in your cover letter. A professional presentation is important. You'll need a cover letter, a photograph or photographs of the product, copies of any favorable publicity it has received, a flyer or a brochure, copies of the ads if it has been independently advertised, and brief write-up, copy like what would appear in a catalog. Proof of its salability is very helpful. Then as soon as you've cracked one catalog, you can again contact all the other catalogs on your hit list. When one catalog does well, you can use that news as reason to again contact the others on your hit list. In this field, success really does breed success. In the early going, it is appropriate to follow up by phone or even in person. Many companies have what they call open-to-buy days, when you can meet with their professional buyers and personally talk about, present, and demonstrate your product. These days, products that have been sold successfully in direct response TV commercials or infomercials are enthusiastically accepted by catalog companies, and this makes it especially desirable to have a television winner. Over the years, I've had my information products sold in many catalogs, including Daytimers, Cadillac Systems, Cybervision, Nightingale Conant, Miles Kimball Business Products, and a variety of smaller specialty books. To date, I have not personally brought something to market that will work in one of the biggies like Sharper Image. But I've worked with a number of clients who've enjoyed great success with many different catalogs. In the information business, specialty interest videos are very hot, and you will see independently produced specialized topic videos cropping up in many catalogs. Gambling expert John Patrick's videos on how to play casino games, for example, appear in a number of different catalogs. Another parasitical approach is what's called an endorsed mailing. Now, this is the biggest single secret to making money that many direct marketers rely on. Instead of placement in catalogs, this is a one-shot piggyback promotion by one company to its customer list of someone else's product, maybe yours. Although this happens mostly with information-type products, there can be other applications. I arranged, for example, for a promotion of a skincare product to be done by the publisher of a newsletter on health foods and nutrition. Typically, as in this example, the publisher, the individual who the customers have their relationship with, writes a brief letter of endorsement. That endorsement letter, plus the sales letter and the product brochure, go out with his newsletter or go to his list in a separate mailing. The orders come to him, he takes his percentage, and the balance and the orders come to the product source for fulfillment. Another version is for the product source to use someone else's list and endorsement, do a separate mailing at their expense, and then pay a commission to the endorser. Often even small lists can be highly profitable because of the power of the endorsement. Last year I did a mailing like this for one of my books to a list of only 3,000 people, but with that list owner's personal endorsement, I sold over 600 books. These two methods can bring your product to market with minimal risk, even no risk at all. Incidentally, should you want to do your own direct marketing of your products and build up your own mail order business, there are many excellent opportunities, resources, and tools to assist you. If you are thinking about a mail order business dealing with hard goods, I strongly recommend reading Gerardo Jaffe's book, How to Make at Least $1 Million in Mail Order, available at bookstores or from Inventor's Friend. And I suggest reading trade magazines like Catalog Age and Direct Marketing. If you are dealing primarily with information products, then the Ultimate Information Entrepreneur Manual and Jeff Paul's Mail Order Success Course are mandatory. Many mail order businesses can still be launched with relatively small test ads in a few magazines for as little as $500 to no more than $10,000 or so. We launched this business, Inventor's Friend, with about $5,000 in advertising and virtually no other investments until sales began occurring. My student turned client and friend, Jeff Paul, up until now a marketer only of information products, has recently launched a new mail-order business targeting golfers, initially selling information, videotapes, but also selling putters, drivers, gadgets, and with the intention of developing a full catalog. He, too, launched for under $5,000. His original business was started with one ad that cost $138, by the way. A final thought. On the next tape, we're going to start out talking about creating or finding good products or product ideas. But I want to emphasize that he who controls distribution, or he who has successful marketing methods, rules the world, not those with products. Product providers must beg, cajole, fight, and negotiate for distribution. If you want to be independent, and you want to be in control of your own destiny, you'll think not just about developing product, but also about developing marketing and distribution. Let's talk about finding a product or product idea. And let me begin by saying that whenever possible, you want to own your own product, either by having created it from scratch, legally knocking off one or a combination of already successful products, or securing exclusive marketing rights to an existing product. It is surprisingly easy in many cases to get certain specific exclusive rights to a product from a manufacturer, by the way, and here's why. Most manufacturers sell their product by only one, two, or at most three methods. For example, a manufacturer with a product being sold through traditional retail distribution, through discount stores, supermarkets, and drugstores, may be completely ignoring the mail order opportunities for that same product or a varied version of that same product. From this source, you might easily get exclusive mail order marketing rights. From the manufacturer's standpoint, anything you produce is gravy. If you convince him that you bring expertise, contacts, resources, and the ability to this venture that he does not have, why wouldn't he give you a shot? Understanding this is very important. Most people think that securing these kinds of exclusive rights requires paying big upfront fees or otherwise investing lots of capital. But I know many instances where aggressive entrepreneurs have obtained valuable exclusive rights just for the asking. Another twist on this is private labeling. Just about every industry has private label manufacturers who basically make the same products under different labels for different marketers. When I owned an interest in a cosmetics company, we had an eye area wrinkle remover made for us with our label on it by a manufacturer that sold that very same product with the Sudden Youth name and label on it to a direct marketer using TV, and with another name and label on it for distribution in discount and drugstores like Kmart and Walgreens. Same product, different names, labels, marketers, and marketing. If you go to a department store cosmetics counter, you'll find 50 or more different name brands of lipstick, but 70% of them are the same and made by the very same single manufacturer. Only the shape and color of the tube is different. This is the norm in cosmetics, but it is quite common in many fields, and you can be on either side of the fence. The provider of product, who has a particular formula or use patent and doles out the same product to many different marketers under many different labels, or the marketer who bypasses the expensive process of creating a particular product from scratch and opts for marketing a private labeled product. With chemical-type products, most private label manufacturers have laboratories capable of analyzing, breaking down, and duplicating just about any product. On a number of occasions, I've taken a product to one of these labs, had it broken down, made minor changes in the formula, and had a new product produced to match that formula. Joe Kosman, author of the book How I Made $1 Million in Mail Order, found one of his most profitable products through a classified ad in a newspaper, an insecticide called fly cake. When he contacted the manufacturer, he discovered they sold the product only through these classified ads. Joe had them private label the same product as Kosman fly cake and sold it through mail order catalogs and through retail distribution, and in just 3 years sold over 8 million units. If that company had been resistant to making this deal the way Joe wanted it, he could simply have taken their fly cake to any number of other manufacturers, had it analyzed, gotten the formula, made minor changes, and had a similar product produced for him. I've dealt with many private labeled products and product lines, including cosmetics, skincare, perfumes, household cleaning products, insecticides, gardening products, even audio cassette programs. For one client, I arranged an entire private label proprietary line of aerosol products and of nutrition products, in both cases with virtually no upfront investment required from the client. If you visit a health food store, you'll see 50 different brands or types of protein powder drink mixes, but most are made by the same 3 or 4 manufacturers, and literally the only differences are the names, the brands, packaging, and most importantly, the marketing. This scenario is repeated over and over again in one business after another. In most industry-specific trade magazines, private label manufacturers advertise their availability and their services, so it is fairly easy to find these companies and to do business with them. In the security field, there is one manufacturer that makes fundamentally the same burglar alarm system for 8 different marketing companies. The product is labeled and packaged differently for each. For one company, the motion detectors are in round cases. For another, square, one white, one tan, and so on, but it's the exact same product. One of these marketing companies uses a direct sales force, and their salespeople personally demonstrate and sell the systems to homeowners, and that system sells for about $300. One of the other marketing companies sells their system through a mail order catalog. They have the product in a dozen different companies' catalogs for as low as $99. Another of these companies exports their version of the system. It's all the same product. Different marketers, different marketing. The problems of marketing a product you do not control are numerous. Others may sell for less, interfering with your profitability and creating confusion in the marketplace. As a general rule of thumb, I believe in having a product that at least appears exclusive. In my main field, the information products business, this is relatively easy to do. For example, let's say that I want to sell a course on investing in real estate. Maybe I've been successful at it and have a method I've used, but I want to add more methods to my product. Well, there are any number of books, tapes, and courses already out there that I can use as research sources. Or I can get uncopyrighted public domain information from the government to add to my product. I can do research on the internet. I can reprint articles. And in totality, I wind up building a better mousetrap, a better course. There are also lots of good books, tapes, and courses I might arrange to buy at 50% or so off, to resell packaged in with mine or separately. Or I might license reprint rights and pay those authors a royalty. There are a lot of options. In the case of this Inventor's Friend package, most of the material is mine and is proprietary. But we liked Vernon Brabham's tape so well, we licensed it from him. We liked the videotape so well, we arranged to buy it as is at wholesale. So we put ours with theirs to create the total package. But 80 or 90% is ours, and in total, it's ours exclusively. And that's what you want, your unique product that you control. Another nice thing about having your own proprietary information product is that others will not go to all that work to develop their own. They'll prefer buying and reselling yours or licensing it from you, so you have an opportunity to set up multiple streams of passive royalty income. Getting exclusive rights to someone else's product can be very valuable, though. I have a friend who got the exclusive retail rights for a product that was being sold on TV and in catalogs. His arrangement called for the manufacturer to fill his orders for him, so he had no inventory investments or worries. As the product became very successful on TV, retail chains and store buyers literally came out of the woodwork, eager to stock and sell the product. My friend was then in what I call the toll booth position. All that business had to pass through him. His business was nothing but a phone, fax machine, a flyer, and a price list. Working from a spare bedroom, he processed over $5 million worth of business in 24 months and made about $250,000 net without ever once handling the product. Toll booth positions are built through such exclusive marketing rights arrangements or through brand name identity. Now, you will undoubtedly be interested in protecting your rights, ideas, and products. In fact, most inventors are paranoid about this issue. For your own products, there are 3 basic types of protection: patents, trademarks, and copyrights. A patent is United States government-enforced protection for ideas, inventions, processes, and products. A trademark protects names, symbols, logos, and slogans. For example, Kentucky Fried Chicken has a patent protecting the machine they devised and used to cook their chicken, but they have a trademark protecting their slogan, "Finger Licking Good," and the little drawing of Colonel Sanders. Then, most common to my business, there are copyrights, which protect intellectual property like books, reports, manuals, newsletter, courses, audio and videotapes, TV programs, and, importantly, advertisements and direct mail pieces. In many cases, you can do most, even all of your own copyright, trademark, or patent work yourself, saving thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. Your business librarian at the main city public library can be of considerable assistance in finding sources of information to assist you, and the SBA offers several helpful publications. You can call 1-800-SBA-YOUASK, or the SBA Publications Office at 202-653-6654. Look to the Inventor's Friend Intellectual Property Protection Kit for full details, forms, and guides on protecting your ideas and inventions. If you are having a complex, sophisticated product manufactured for you, you'll be concerned about protection from your vendors. If possible, you can get your vendors to sign non-disclosure agreements. Some entrepreneurs like to divide their manufacturing processes, so one part of their product is made by vendor A, another part by vendor B, another by C, and it's assembled by D, so no one supplier has all the pieces of the puzzle. If you have employees and you have proprietary formulas, lists, or other confidential information, you may want to use both non-disclosure and non-compete documents. And if employees are going to submit ideas and suggestions, or create products or advertising materials, or otherwise contribute to your business's intellectual equity, you would be wise to define in advance, in writing, who owns what. In dealing with suppliers, joint venture partners, licensees, and with exclusive rights situations, you should never rely on verbal or handshake agreements. Everything should be thoroughly and clearly documented in written agreements. In most cases, there's no reason that you can't prepare these documents yourself or with forms available in stationery stores. The most important thing to remember is to avoid ambiguity. Make each point crystal clear so there's no room for differing opinions or interpretations about what was meant. I have a client right now who is in deep manure because he let a handshake agreement govern his business. Nearly 10 years ago, he got the exclusive seminar sales rights from another man, an author and self-publisher, of a collection of books and tapes on a highly specialized subject. When the agreement was struck, he was just doing his own seminars and selling these products at those seminars, so the whole thing was small potatoes. But over the years, the business grew, and he now has dozens of instructors operating throughout the United States and Canada conducting these seminars, and they're selling hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of these products a year. A few months ago, the author, the publisher, suddenly and unexpectedly died. The family put the rights to all his publications up for competitive bid, and my client's biggest competitor cut a deal, made the winning bid, and got the rights. Without a written agreement, my client is out in the cold. I do believe in doing as much of your own legal work as possible. If you're not careful, you can quickly spend many thousands of dollars with an attorney for work that is pure boilerplate, standard forms filled out by his secretary, charged to you at his hourly rate. Even if you are going to consult or use a lawyer, you should know as much as possible about the procedure you need before setting foot in a law office. I also believe you can get excessively involved in protecting your ideas and products. The truth is that enforcement of these protections can be very time-consuming, difficult, and expensive, and many inventors are not willing to go the distance because it is often the identity and marketing of the product rather than the core nature of the product that produces the money. Being knocked off is relatively irrelevant. Ted Nicholas made a fortune advertising his book, How to Form Your Own Corporation Without a Lawyer, with long-form copy, full-page direct response ads in airline magazines and business and financial magazines for over a decade. But before his book, there were other books, even magazine articles about this same subject. After his book became widely advertised, there were many knockoffs. Kits sold in office supply and bookstores, other books, classes, seminars, even 900 numbers. None of these knockoffs affected Ted's income. It wasn't the book. It wasn't the set of forms that was important. It was Ted's story told in his unique ad, and his expertise in buying ads based at favorable rates, and his very clever back-end business of forming Delaware corporations for fees. All of that is what made him rich. Many people duplicated one or the other of these elements but no one duplicated all of them. It's much more important to build that kind of a business, a step-by-step, complex money machine around your product, than it is to worry about others stealing the product idea. The real big-time entrepreneur is so busy making money, he doesn't even notice the knockoffs. This is not to say you shouldn't act to protect your rights. You should. But don't let it all make you paranoid or neurotic, diverted from everything else you must do to become successful. So, how do you take a product from the idea stage to actually producing income? Let's talk about the inventor's frustrations. I recently read an article in our local business journal about a man by the name of Carl Johnson, who invented a new, simple, cheap food processor. He worked with a consultant to obtain a patent and put together a presentation on his product. And $9,100 later, there's no sign of any interest from any manufacturer. He and the sympathetic reporter whined and moaned in tandem about this poor man being taken for all his money and not getting any results. All the blame is on the Washington, D.C. Beltway consultants. Well, there are outright rip-off artists in the invention development business, and we've already talked about that. But setting that aside, $9,000 just to get a patent, period, is not especially outrageous. I've personally seen costs as low as a few $100s up to $30,000 for complex situations. And the patent is just a protective document. It's no guarantee of success or income any more than a college degree is a guarantee of a good job. It's a receipt, proof of a certain level of education. That's all it is. So patent or no patent, Carl's problem starts with his own attitude about bringing a new product to market. He puts way too much value in his idea. Ideas really are a dime a dozen. Trying to just take an idea, even with a prototype, and find a big manufacturer who will leap forward, write a big check, and sell zillions of Carl's food processors, thereby paying him lots of royalties, is like trying to teach a goat to drive a car. I'm sure it can be done. I'm sure it happens. But I can get better odds at the track. The idea is one thing. Making that idea into an engine that can drive a business or a magnet that can attract money is quite another. Chances are Carl will never get a manufacturer to pick up his invention. Among many reasons, it's just too easy to knock off, to change a little thing here or there to circumvent the patent. And, for that matter, there are dozens of other good food processor inventions laying around, gathering dust, just there for the taking. If his invention was totally unique and he did not have the money or fortitude to produce and market it himself, then he should consider licensing, and I'll discuss that later. But what Carl could do is get a small run of his food processors made, demonstrate and sell them in a local store to compile market and consumer research and proof that he has a saleable product. He could use the information he gathered to improve the product. Then he could take samples, sales results, and literature to several trade shows and try to find a couple of companies that will agree to sell them, or manufacturers' representatives, distributors, and agents to rep them. Then he could send out publicity releases to lots of magazines and newspapers about the $29 food processor that outperforms most $299 models. He'd sell some units directly that way, but more importantly, he'd build his case. He'd build up proof of marketplace responsiveness. As he takes these steps and makes these things happen, as he turns his invention into a small but working business, he now positions himself for any number of good things to happen. But sitting in his basement with a prototype, relying on some agency somewhere that handles hundreds of inventors and inventions, just mails lists to manufacturers, that's not a position likely to make good things happen. So I'm going to suggest a little blueprint to you for bringing a new product to market. It's not the only way. It's certainly not an easy way. But it is the way that I see working most often, most consistently. The outline first, and then we'll go through it. Here quickly is the outline. Step number 1, document your idea. Step number 2, do your research. Step number 3, produce a prototype. Step number 4, develop packaging for the product and have photographs taken of it. Step number 5, produce product flyers, brochures, sales aids. Step number 6, do your first manufacturing run, making a small quantity of the product. Step number 7, test market your product by directly and personally selling it, if at all possible. Step number 8, gain intellectual property protection where appropriate. Step number 9, seek public publicity. Step number 10, seek industry publicity. Step number 11, exhibit at trade shows. Step number 12, get your product placed in catalogs And step number 13, utilize all other marketing opportunities. Now, before going through this list, let me quickly acknowledge that this assumes you have a way to get your widgets made and you have some money to work with. The money system tells you how to get the money you need for these kinds of purposes. These same concepts also apply to seeking out a manufacturer willing to work with you reasonably in these early experimental stages because he is sold on the potential of what you're doing and his prospect of getting a lot of future business and possibly an extra profit, a royalty, or equity position over and above his usual markup.
This is the end of side 1. Please turn the cassette over for side 2.
So let's begin. Step number 1. The first thing you want to do with your idea is to document it appropriately. This does not necessarily mean to run to a patent attorney. Don't spend your money foolishly on anything that you do not need. For starters, get a bound notebook that pages cannot be added to and start writing down everything about your invention idea. Draw sketches, describe the product, keep notes of your progress, date every page, don't skip a page, have witnesses sign each page, and possibly file a simple disclosure document with the Patent and Trademark Office. Again, for full details, take a look at the Inventor's Friend Idea Protection Kit included with your system. Step number 2. You need to do research. Go to stores which would sell your product and see what your competition looks like. If there is no product like the one you envision, ask the clerks if they have such a product, or a product that would address the same problem you are addressing. Ask them if they get many requests for such a product. Ask where you might get such a product. Pick their brains if they seem intelligent or have years of experience with selling in the field your product applies to. It's free, and you never know what ideas they might give you. Look in trade journals, magazines, catalogs, on the internet. Go to trade shows and ask smart questions. Talk to salespeople and experts in the field. Eventually, you will probably want to do a patent search. This will reveal whether your product has been patented or not, regardless of its commercialization. You may have a patent attorney handle this, you may hire just a search firm to do it, or you can do a lot of it yourself. Much of what you need to do can be done from your home or office on a computer connected to the internet. Find out how much people are paying for your competitors' products that meet the need your product will meet. Try to determine what the market will pay for your invention. This may not be as hard as you think. As a rule, the selling price must be at least 4 times the manufactured cost to turn a profit. If your invention can't command that high of a list price, you've either got to redesign it, manufacture it out of less costly materials, or forget it. By the time everybody sticks their hands in your pocket for their services, you'll go home with empty pockets if you don't have a sizable markup on your product. If you can't produce it for 25% or less of the retail price, you may very well wind up losing your shirt if you persist. Before spending any money, I'm sure you would like to get a feel for what others think of your idea and its chances for success. Naturally, the first people you will probably tell will be family and friends. Now, they may offer some insight and some initial reactions that are interesting, but always remember who you are talking to. If your idea is really terrible, they may not tell you for fear of hurting your feelings. All evaluations are subjective, but this one is also quite emotional. It's an okay place to start, but you sure don't want to stop there. Ask potential buyers and customers if they would buy such a product and how much they would be willing to spend. In some cases, it's even appropriate to ask for orders and collect a deposit. You really only know how your product will sell when people part with cash. And the more test marketing you can do before large production commitments or national media exposure, the better. There are lots of references in your manual of people, companies, labs, and so forth to assist with independent evaluations. I'd add a little warning here, though. Beware the paralysis of analysis. By far, the very best evaluation always comes from the marketplace. So the sooner you get to the point of offering a product to a suitable consumer, asking him for money, and seeing if he'll give it to you, the better. Step number 3. With hard products, at some point, you must produce a prototype. A lot of people want to skip this part and just try to sell or license their idea. But manufacturers typically don't buy ideas, they buy products. So prototypes are very important. The prototype process will be very educational for you and ultimately will provide you with a model that you can show. The final prototype will also serve as the basis for the claims you make in your patent, if you choose to seek a patent. Where do you get started with prototyping? The first thing you do is make the most specific drawings possible, because this is what you or a model maker will use to produce your prototype. Keep in mind that your design must always be functional but also marketable. If your product functions fine but it looks so bad that no one wants to buy it, you lose out overall. If you find that you need assistance, you can hire an industrial designer to help you finish the drawings. You may want to get a draftsman to get you started. They are a lot less expensive and may be able to complete most projects. If your design is complex and the prototype costly, you may want to have your idea computer generated first. Technology now has computer-aided design software, which enables inventors to create three-dimensional models of their inventions. You finish tinkering with the design, the CAD program will produce professional line drawings of your concept. The service could save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Look in the yellow pages for the service nearest you, or you might purchase the software yourself and get started. There are articles in your manual with details about the computer programs available to assist you. A cost analysis, a feasibility study is important at this point, because there is no point in producing a product that can't turn a profit. No amount of marketing, the best product in the world, cannot overcome bad economics. Being very honest with yourself here is the key to not throwing your money away. This is hard because by now you are highly excited about seeing your little brainchild come to life. But if your product costs too much to produce in relationship to what the marketplace will pay for it, then all of your dreams will become nightmares and your bank account will disappear. If you determine from careful analysis that the economics cannot allow you to make money, then you must walk away from your idea. Step number 4. No matter how great your product is, in many cases, if the packaging is poor, your sales will be awful. If you are going to spend the time and the money to show up at the ball, you better be dressed to dance. You are the new kid, so everybody is forming opinions of you rapidly. Your product package tells them who you are. The product name, the headline, the design of the package has maybe 1 or 2 or 5 seconds to catch someone's attention and stop their forward motion if it's on a store shelf. It's picture in a catalog. You have to get noticed. Then you have to describe benefits, because people don't buy products, they buy benefits. And your packaging must sell the product. The benefits must be obvious to the consumer. And most buying decisions are emotional and made within seconds of consideration. When satisfied with your package and your prototype, have a professional photographer who does a lot of commercial product photography take a number of quality photos. If possible, include those that show the product being used or demonstrated. These photos will be the very important first impression for your product in many environments. Step number 5. Flyers or brochures. You're probably going to do one aimed at end-user consumers, another aimed at companies that might market your product. For a simple 8.5 by 11 flyer, there should be an attention-getting, benefit-oriented headline, the photo or photos with captions, then the main sales copy. And for simplicity's sake, here's a good basic format. Draw a line down the middle of the remaining space on the page. On one side, put important product features and benefits as bullet points, along with price, ordering information, and details. On the other side, and continuing on to the back if necessary, write a long-form sales letter for your product. For step-by-step help with writing copy, consult my book, The Ultimate Sales Letter. And keep in mind that the benefits of interest to the consumer are very different from the benefits of interest to the store owner or cataloger or other marketer who might sell your product for you. The reseller is interested in such things as proven consumer demand, markup, and profit. Step number 6. Do your first manufacturing run of a small quantity to test market. Now, this first run of your product may cost much more per piece than future large runs. The economics may be bad, but that's okay because you are in the research stage. You will also want to consider buying product liability insurance. Given the society we live in today, where even McDonald's serving hot coffee winds up getting them sued, it only takes one person being injured with your product to cause you some real problems. You will want to investigate product liability insurance. Step number 7, test market. If possible, get out there and sell your product yourself. I believe you benefit tremendously by personally going direct to the user with your product. Also, by beginning to build a business around your product, you accomplish many things. You do your own research. You learn what customers question, object to, misunderstand, like, and don't like. You create cash flow. And most important, you begin to prove that your product is saleable. You can also collect testimonials from your customers. Step number 8. If you find that your product is saleable, you've made your necessary refinements, now is the time to think about intellectual property protection. If the name of your product is working well for you and you've settled on it, then it's time to take a look at trademarking. It's a good idea to do a trademark search before you officially name your product to make sure you are not infringing on someone else's trademark. If you decide to patent your invention, then now is probably the time to approach a patent attorney. If your product calls for copyrights or your advertising materials can be copyrighted, then you can and should do this yourself. Step number 9, public publicity. Using your flyer, your photos, testimonials from satisfied customers, and other materials, you can create a press kit, including a news release, and you can submit all of this to newspapers, magazines, radio, television, and generate millions of dollars of publicity. In effect, free advertising for your products. Many magazines, especially trade and business magazines, even have sections specifically featuring new products. They list your price and ordering information. They literally advertise your product for free. Step number 10, industry publicity. Again, most trade and industry magazines have new product sections and give free exposure to interesting new products. If you have a new toy or game, there are several trade magazines read by everybody in the toy industry. If you have a new kitchen gadget, there are trade magazines read by everybody in the housewares and gift industries. Buyers from department store chains, big discount chains, warehouse clubs, and so on study these magazines in order to find new products. Exposure in these magazines will produce inquiries from retailers, catalog companies, other mail-order marketers, and others who may be able to sell your product for you. This kind of exposure is maybe the most important exposure of all. Step number 11. You may also want to exhibit at several trade shows. Again, for every product category, there are shows. For toys, for gifts, for housewares, for sporting goods, and so on. At trade shows, you get face-to-face with retailers, other marketers, agents, and distributors. You can also go to other companies' booths and often get to high-placed executives, even the presidents of manufacturers of other companies you might license your product to. Trade shows are terrific networking opportunities. At other times, these key people are sheltered, locked behind layers of underlings, and you have to walk across hot coals barefoot and jump through hoops to try and find out who they are, let alone get to them. But at trade shows, they're right there, identifiable and accessible. Step number 12. I believe the best way for many people to get their product marketed at no risk and little cost is getting it placed in established mail-order catalogs. The catalog industry is enormous, and for most products there are a number of appropriate catalogs, and these companies need new products that will appeal to their customers. They make their money from repeat sales to loyal customers, so they must keep going back to them with new and different products. If one of these companies accepts your product, they advertise it in their catalog, usually entirely at their expense, to hundreds of thousands or even millions of potential customers. In my business, information products, for example, the big catalogs are Nightingale Conant, Cybervision, Daytimers, maybe another dozen companies. I've had my products sold in all of these at one time or another. A couple of years ago, Hume Publishing Company, a mail-order business selling personal finance study courses, picked up one of my products to sell and wound up buying thousands of units from me. There's a mail-order company in Canada that has sold over $25,000 worth of my products this year alone. In most cases, I'm giving discounts of 40% to no more than 60% off the retail price. And in selling the same product direct to a consumer myself, my cost of advertising and making the sale would run about the same, 50 to 60% or so of the retail. Think about a product like a simple light controller. You know, you screw the light bulb into the socket, and then when it gets dark, it automatically turns on the light. You can buy this product in any number of stores like Home Depot or True Value or even Target, and that is retail distribution. But the same product is featured in a number of catalogs like the Safety Zone and Brookstone Tools. And believe me, these sales through these catalogs can be substantial. A single catalog may sell thousands of an item month after month. and there are catalogs for every type of product, and they need your new product. And if this manufacturer wanted to, and he was really astute, he could package 4 of those little doohickeys in a kit with a booklet or a video on home security, create an $89 or $99 product suitable for direct response TV and other types of direct marketing. And if the CEO of the company positioned himself as a home security authority, he could create a publicity campaign for this product. Step number 13. Other types of marketers. There are all sorts of marketers. People and companies involved in direct response TV, radio, mail order, direct sales, manufacturers, reps, jobbers, multi-level and network marketing companies, the premium and incentive industry, and so on. You have in your action guide a certificate valid for a free product marketing evaluation. This lets you send in a brief description of your product, photos and flyers if you have them, economic information, and we will return to you a customized report including suggestions of how to best market your product and who to contact. If this consultation were done in person, it would take at least an hour and cost no less than $700. I hope you'll take advantage of this at the appropriate time. For a better understanding of all this, let me give you an example of this process in actual use. A woman I've done some consulting with came up with the idea for an exercise and fitness video, especially for full-figured large women. So what did she do? She was able to prove consumer interest because she was doing lectures and conducting exercise classes at several health spas. With this proof, she was able to find investors and partners with video production experience and capability. So she was able to get the video itself produced. Call that the prototype. And in a small quantity, duplicated and packaged. With these samples and flyers, she took the following actions. She, of course, began selling the videos directly at her classes. She also did small mail order ads in a few magazines. She sought public publicity by contacting all the women's magazines, health and fitness magazines, major city newspapers, and TV and radio talk shows. She sought industry publicity by contacting magazines serving the special interest video, publishing, bookstore, supermarket, women's fashions, and other related businesses. As a result of her public publicity campaign, several magazines wrote about her work in articles and featured her video in their new product sections. A number of direct orders resulted, plus 2 of the magazines chose to subsequently sell the video with ads on a per-order basis. She also became a guest on the Sally Jesse Raphael national TV talk show, gaining enormously valuable exposure, and through the 800 number, sold a number of videos directly. Because of all this public publicity, the industry publicity paid off too. A distributor put the video in stores, and Avon picked it up and sold over 50,000 copies through their catalogs. All of this resulted in some very nice profits, a measure of fame, and the basis for a big business. I'm sorry to say this person was not prepared to capitalize on these opportunities and did not follow through to turn it into a big business, but she certainly could have. This product could have rolled out into a large number of catalogs, and the customer database could have been sold many other products, vitamins, weight loss products, books, tapes, a tape-a-month program, and so on. Another great example to learn from is the Thigh Master, promoted by Suzanne Summers. You'll find that whole story in my book, How to Make Millions with Your Ideas, included with this course. This product has been sold on TV, through hundreds of catalogs, via credit card statement stuffers, freestanding inserts in newspapers, and magazine ads. I wonder how many exercise devices there are out there in the hands of inventors with patents, sitting around gathering dust, nothing happening, because the inventors are waiting for somebody else to do it for them. Probably thousands. When I was talking about the videos, you might look at Avon picking them up and selling 50,000 copies as the big break. Everybody's always hoping for that big break. But that happened because of all the publicity, advertising, marketing, and selling she did beforehand. That big break, like most big breaks, didn't happen. It was made to happen. And not just by sending information to Avon, by selling the product and getting it into the marketplace any and every which way she could. On previous tapes, I've explained how to venture a new product. That is, form your own business to manufacture and market it. Now I want to tell you about other options. Simply put, you can outright sell your invention, or you can license it to a manufacturer or other company and receive a royalty on the sales. These options are pursued by inventors who stubbornly desire to simply invent and not get involved in all of the other aspects of business. Often the payoff is not as great, but the reduction of stress and risk and investment and complication is worth it to many people. Deciding whether to license or to sell depends on several things. When you sell the invention, you get a lump sum for it and you're out. You cannot make any more money on it no matter how much it sells. A license requires that you keep a constant eye on your licensee. They may cancel the product at any time. The licensee may sit on your idea and not aggressively market. The product may not do well. Lawsuits may occur that you have no control over but are a party to. If these types of risks are not tolerable to you, then you may want to sell and walk away. But if your product appears to be a long-term winner and you choose not to venture, then licensing is your ticket to making money with your idea. In a nutshell, licensing your product is when you find a company who will manufacture and or market your invention without you having to do it. They incur the costs of manufacturing, distribution, marketing, advertising, all the other business-related expenses and investments. Sometimes they pay you in advance when you sign the licensing agreement, and of course they give you a percentage of the sales, sometimes for a set period of time, sometimes in perpetuity. The benefits of licensing are obvious. One, you don't have to start a company to make and market the product. Two, you gain the financial backing of an existing corporation to launch your product. And three, you gain their sales expertise, probably already selling products in the same field as your invention. Also, retailers prefer to work with companies where they can do one-stop shopping, thus reducing the number of vendors they deal with. Four, the licensee may see improvements to your product and be able to make improvements to your product that you did not see, or may have access to markets for your product that you had not considered. Five, of course, it frees you up to move on to your next invention or whatever else you would like to do rather than running a business. Of course, that all sounds wonderful, but it comes with its own list of disadvantages. For starters, you lose control of your product. Your involvement is reduced, restricted, or eliminated. Your baby is now in someone else's hands, and you have to trust that they will nurture it to maturity. If the product does not make it to the marketplace or does not do well, then you will not get much in return for all your hard work, and you will wonder if it could have been done differently. Of course, you are going to do the best you can with your licensing agreements to ensure that the product gets developed and marketed properly, but it still remains a risk. Second, finding the right licensee who will take on your product is no easy task. The big boys in your field of invention are reluctant to deal with untested inventors. Smaller companies are not a whole lot easier for the first-time inventor. And you are not just looking for any old licensee, you are seeking the right licensee. Third, whether you want to or not, you will need to protect your invention when you go into licensing. Patent pending or an actual patent will discourage most companies from stealing your idea. Well, many companies will require that you get a patent to protect their interests and increase the value of your invention. You may incur other legal costs. Four, you have to sell your invention to the licensee. You have to do market research, build a prototype, produce a business plan, show proof of consumer interest, then obtain appointments with potential licensees, and ultimately put on dog and pony shows. You have to sell yourself and your invention in a persuasive manner. And you'll probably have to do this over and over again, dealing with rejection and mismatches along the way until you find the right licensee. Five, you have to negotiate an agreement, properly protect your interests, and keep an eye on your licensee to make sure you are getting what is rightfully yours. As you can see, licensing involves its own long list of work, and it has its own disadvantages. Probably the most important part of licensing is finding that right licensee for you and your product. In essence, you're looking for a partner. Place more value on the licensee's ability to market than to manufacture. Manufacturers are easy to find. Good marketers are not. Start your search with strong market-driven companies or marketing firms who already have established channels of distribution in the specific field of your invention. Approach manufacturers as a last resort. And if you do, make sure that they are marketing companies first, manufacturers second. Look for companies who sell products like yours, companies that need your product to complement or fill out their product line. To identify these potential licensees, go to the stores, look at the products like yours, and find out who the manufacturers are. Go through catalogs, go through trade journals, network with other inventors at local inventors organizations, talk to people within your industry's trade associations, get to trade shows and meet people. Once you have identified your list of potential licensees, narrow them down to those you really want, those you feel would be your best partners, and offer you the greatest chance of success. Choose those who have a good reputation and already produce quality products. You are looking for companies with good track records and established relationships in the marketplace, companies that are going to be in business for a long time, that have good distribution. With your shortlist, you are now ready to contact these companies and hopefully sell them on your invention. Most experts do not believe in the shotgun approach, contacting all the would-be suitors at the same time. Most believe in the rifle approach, contacting one company at a time, starting with your first choice. Whether you shotgun or rifle, you will need to call to find out exactly who handles submissions from outside inventors. You will probably want to talk with that person and explain why you believe your product is a good fit for his company. Your goal is to get an appointment to come in and show your invention with the highest level decision makers that you possibly can. Here's a helpful tip. Do not present yourself as an inventor with a brand new product idea. Instead, present yourself as a marketing professional or a new product developer. Make sure that your prospects know your product is not just an idea, but is developed and is ready to market or close to being ready to market, that there's been some test marketing done, that sales have taken place. Before you present your idea to a potential licensee, you will want to try and get a non-disclosure agreement signed. Some companies will do so, some will not. If you proceed without one, obviously you are heightening your risk of being ripped off. Some companies will ask you to sign their agreement instead of signing yours. If you do, read it over very carefully, and if there's something you do not understand, get it clarified. Never sign a document you do not understand and are not comfortable with. When you go to make a presentation, personalize it and focus it on the individual licensee. This demands that you do your homework on their company and products. Also, your presentation should be complete. Here are some of the things you want to include: the prototype and the packaging. Don't expect executives of these companies to have great imaginations, to be able to work to get it. You need to show them a product. Have good advertising materials already put together: flyers, brochures, advertisements you've actually used, sales letters. Show your news releases, press kits, and the publicity that you've been able to obtain. Show your legal documents, your patents, your trademarks, your copyrights, how you have made this product proprietary. If you've had technical evaluations done or independent evaluations of the product, have that information available. Certainly have testimonials from consumers and from experts. If you cannot get an appointment and they ask you to mail in your submission, then make sure you include all the same information we just discussed. Make sure that you have a detailed cover letter that clarifies and eliminates any confusion. Make sure that the package is being delivered to the right decision maker or decision makers, and put a time limit, usually no longer than 90 days, on their response. Here are 4 major issues to consider when you enter into licensing. Number 1 is exclusivity. An exclusive license gives the licensee the right to manufacture and market the product exclusively. It even excludes you from marketing the product. The exclusivity, however, does not have to be all-inclusive. You may only give a licensee exclusive rights to certain geographic territories, certain markets, or certain marketing methods. This opens up the potential for you to use your invention to penetrate many different markets and many different territories and to create multiple income streams rather than a single income stream. Totally non-exclusive licensing agreements give the licensee the right to manufacture or market your invention, but does not prohibit you from licensing your product to many others who may be and probably are competitors. These kinds of licenses tend to be sold like business opportunities, often to individuals or very small companies, for relatively small money, but all added together, it can be significant. The second issue, royalties. A royalty is a share of the sales or the net proceeds on a percentage basis that you receive for licensing your invention. The royalty rate on your invention will depend on the strength of the protection, the value of the patents and trademarks and copyrights, how ready to market the invention is, your know-how, and how proven the product is. Most industries already have royalty structures that are sort of norms. You should investigate your industry to see what the range of royalties are for a product like yours. Royalties can range anywhere from 1% to 15%. Most common range is 3 to 7, with 5% probably the average. It's important to ask 5% of what? Ideally, a royalty is based on gross retail or gross wholesale revenue. Whatever you do, do not do a net deal because there is never any net. Issue number 3 is control. When you sign a licensing agreement and appoint a licensee, you give up a large degree of control. However, you can and will want to keep the company from sitting on your invention indefinitely. Obviously, if your product doesn't sell, you don't make any money. So minimum performance requirements or minimum royalty payments must be built into your agreement. The 4th issue is advance payments. And on this issue, you'll find many different opinions. Some people feel that you should not agree on any deal that does not include a significant advance against future royalties. They say that this financial commitment shows seriousness and also gives them an investment that has to be recouped through sales, an incentive for the licensee to perform. It is also some payment to you for all the expense of getting the product to the point that you hand it over to the licensee. Others feel that the demand upfront payment will only impair your product's chances of making it to market. They say that the upfront money is often needed by the manufacturer to develop and produce the product. And if you handcuff the manufacturer, the licensee, by taking too much money up front, then neither of you profit from sale of the product. Actually, both sides are correct. Each has a point. You have to look at your industry, your particular situation, and then make judgment calls. If the industry you are addressing usually pays advances and the company has plenty of capital, that's one thing. If you are dealing with a company that is not flush with capital, or where tooling expenses for your invention may be very high, or there's no precedence in that particular industry for advances, then you have to consider all of those factors.
This is the end of side 1. Please turn the cassette over for side 2.
Here are a few additional considerations you may want to see included in a licensing agreement. Number 1, your right to audit the licensee's books and records to verify sales and revenue. Number 2, making sure that you receive royalties not just for the original invention or product, but all the variations of same, even if they are made by the licensee without your direct involvement. Number 3, who pays the maintenance fees required by the patent office, the trademark office, and so forth. Number 4, who files and pays for international patents. Number 5, the term of the agreement, how long the agreement is in place, and what the terms are of renewal, and the exit strategy, how everybody can get out of the agreement. 6, whether royalties are tied just to the invention itself or to trademarks and copyrighted advertising materials. Number 7, quality control. Number 8, sub-licensing. Number 9, lawsuits. Who covers the expenses if there are lawsuits? What insurance is required? Who pays for the insurance? And finally, getting the company to name you in product liability insurance. How do you know when you found or created the $1 million product, the one that is virtually certain to be a winner, that warrants all of the investment of time and money that it may take to turn it into a win? Well, I suppose that every one of us in the marketing field has different characteristics or factors we look for when evaluating the potential of products or product ideas. As a result of speaking at several seminars, I had an opportunity to meet and listen to Joe Sugarman. If you don't know who Joe is, you should. Joe made a fortune with JS&A Sales, bringing unusual electronic products to market with full-page, copy-intensive direct response ads in the airline magazines, and ultimately his own catalog business. Today, he's better known by many in connection with the source of his second multi-million-dollar marketing empire built around blue blocker sunglasses. Joe has always had a knack for picking million-dollar products, and here are a few of the things he looks for in a product or offer idea, along with my comments. Number 1 is simplicity. At one time, Joe brought a product to market called the Swiss Army Watch to capitalize on the widely known Swiss Army knife and on the Swatch watch craze. He advertised a collection of 9 versions of the watch, adult and children's sizes, different colors, etc. But in another ad campaign, he offered only the basic black man's version of the watch. The response to the second campaign was 3 times better than to the first. So Joe is a devout believer in keeping everything simple, no matter how sophisticated the market. I, too, prefer the simple product, something that everybody instantly understands as soon as they see it and hear or read a 30-second explanation about it. Number 2, the desire to belong. It is Joe's contention that the strongest reason that people buy a particular product is the desire to belong to the group that is already buying that product. For example, Mercedes and Volvo are virtually identical in safety, reliability, resale value. So why does somebody buy the much costlier Mercedes? To belong to the group of people who own Mercedes automobiles. Now we know this motivation is used to do brand differentiation marketing, to sell one car over another, one brand of liquor over another, and so on. There's no doubt in my mind that the juicer craze started by the first infomercial was fueled by this, and by word of mouth. People got juicers because their friends and coworkers were talking about them and buying them, and they wanted to be in on it, so they got one too. If your product has the ability to create this kind of bandwagon effect, so much the better. Number 3, exclusivity, rarity, or uniqueness. We use this a lot in the seminar business. My friend Gary Halbert had a $7,000 per person seminar in Key West, which is a pain in the rear to travel to, is unique as a location, and of course the price tag was a little exclusive. Sugarman held his seminars up in the northern woods of Wisconsin in winter and included snowmobiling. I charged $3,000 to $4,000 to attend my direct marketing conferences, and I limit attendance to no more than 15 or 20 people plus returning alumni. We create an elite group and an elite activity. Years ago, I did some speaking for a company that was recruiting salespeople through public seminars. They always took 2 hotel rooms side by side. In one room, they ran their recruiting seminar. Next door, on the other side of the wall, the weekly meeting for those already in the business was underway. The leaders loudly giving out commission checks, people applauding and cheering the top performers, laughing at the speakers, everybody having a ball. All the new people in the one room wanted to do was get into that other room as fast as they could. I've never forgotten that very shrewd lesson in human psychology. There's supply and demand at work, too. All collectibles, paintings, cartoon cells, baseball cards, those sorts of things are sold based on the yin-yang of limited supply versus excess demand so that the race is on. Smart marketers always look for a way to build this into their businesses. Number 4, curiosity. This, Joe Sugarman says, is what makes the mail-order product fundamentally different from the retail product. The mail-order customer can't pick up the product, touch it, play with it, and determine whether or not to buy it that way. So you have to take that lemon and turn it into lemonade by capitalizing on curiosity. That's why information products are such great direct response products. You can so dramatize and glamorize the contents. You create an aura, an urgency, a desire to know. It's important to understand, by the way, that different products are best suited to different media. Ultimately, a product may work everywhere, but it will need to be first driven by one media, one method of marketing that can best establish it in the marketplace. Triple-edged wiper blades, for example, had only minimal success in the marketplace through retail distribution, service stations, and auto supply stores until it was a huge success with direct response TV commercials, where its uniqueness could be demonstrated. If your product is a direct response product, then it will differ from a retail product, maybe in size, in price, in packaging, in other ways. One of those is how heavily you need to lean on arousing consumer curiosity. Maybe you remember the famous episode of L.A. Law where they talked about the sexual ecstasy secret. It was called The Venus Butterfly. It was one of the most talked about episodes. The actors still get asked about it today. Why? Because everybody's curiosity was aroused, pardon the pun. Everybody wanted to know, what is the Venus butterfly? In the same vein, Nora Hayden wrote a book and publicized it onto the bestseller list. The title, How to Satisfy a Woman Every Time and Have Her Begging for More. Now be honest, aren't you a little curious about that? What is she telling men to do? Joe Carbo's famous Lazy Man's Way to Riches ad for his book played totally on curiosity. Using a much copied technique, he made sure you knew what his book was not about, but never revealed what it was about. Can you apply that to other types of products? I think so. I think, for example, there's curiosity involved in the selling of Nancy Kwan's Pearl Cream products. These are presented as an Oriental beauty secret. They contain mashed up pearls. And I think every woman says to herself, hey, there's one I've never heard of. Pearls. I wonder what that feels like. Number 5, timing. Joe Sugarman says it's one of the most important things. I'm not sure I'd rate it most important, but it certainly is very important. Joe sold 1 million pocket-sized portable CB radios when the CB radio boom was on. Now you couldn't give them away. Right now, health and fitness is hot if you avoid getting trapped in a prevention sales pitch. But I don't know how long this will last. I guess my preference is with timeless product categories and themes. that are consistently, reliably, and historically productive. But if that's not available, the next best thing is a timing-sensitive product hit at the right time. Timing with direct marketing is kind of like location in retail. Number 6, involvement. People like to have active involvement with products. That's why gadgets are so popular. We're all kids inside, getting sweaters for Christmas when we really want toys. Joe ran the first direct response ads for electronic calculators and used phrases like, pick up the calculator, touch the keys, feel the nice pressure on the keys, look at the big bright display, you'll really like it. He calls this getting the buyer to mentally turn the knobs. One way or another, you've got to get the customer to play with the knobs. When I look at a product or build a product, I try to keep this in mind. How is this person going to feel when he gets it, opens it up, spreads it out? Are there things for him to do? The next time you get a direct mail package from Publishers Clearinghouse or American Family Publishers, pay closer attention to it. The whole thing is based on involvement. Go find this symbol, clip out this coupon, stick this sticker here, initial there, fold over. They know that if they can get you that involved with the mailing, they'll probably get you to buy something. Well, the same thing holds true for a product. If you can get somebody really involved in setting up, putting together, or using a product, chances are they'll want it, like it, and keep it. The cellular phone is a great example of an involvement product. These things proliferated like wildfire because every time you saw a buddy using one, you wanted to try it, to make a call on it, and then you wanted your own. Well, this is not an all-inclusive formula, but these ideas are valuable in assessing the potential of your own products or product ideas. How do they measure up? With each of these factors, you add to your product's chances of success in the marketplace. Keep in mind the words of our country's most prolific inventor, Thomas Alva Edison, who said, anything that won't sell, I don't want to invent. Let's talk about money. I put together the original How to Get the Money You Need cassettes, now the Money System, nearly 10 years ago. And it's been a consistent top seller for us. Versions have been marketed by Hume Publishing. I get a lot of questions about it. People questioning whether the techniques I discuss there really work. Well, it's included in the Inventor's Friend system because those techniques absolutely do work. Most new venture money comes from unconventional sources and is obtained in unconventional ways, and that's the way it is. On this tape, I'm going to give you kind of an update and an extension of that program. And let me start by telling you a true story that demonstrates the simplicity, the basics of getting money for a new venture. In Parma, Ohio, a Cleveland suburb, there's a one-of-a-kind fast food, ethnic food restaurant and takeout place called Parma Pierogies, famous, and I do mean famous, for homemade pierogies. Time magazine wrote about this restaurant. During his presidential campaign, Bill Clinton and Al Gore ate there. Locally, the owner, Mary, is a bona fide celebrity, but getting going wasn't easy. She conceived this business in 1988, but didn't get going until 1991. As you might imagine, bankers weren't lining up to lend money for this business. So here's what Mary did. She cold called prospected people with Polish-sounding names out of the telephone directory. She told them about her idea. She got them to taste the pierogies, and she lined up 80 investors, strangers, who each put up $3,000, and that launched the business. No rocket science here. Guts, determination, persistence, maybe even a little ignorance. You see, when no doors appear to be open, you just have to keep telling your story to anybody and everybody who'll listen. Tell that story to enough people and somebody will step forward. The late Don Dwyer, an enormously successful entrepreneur, author of the book Target Success, a friend and client of mine in the past, calls this the money test. It's the test of your own conviction, of your character, of whether or not you really believe in your idea and have what it takes to make it. Assuming you have a sound idea, good research to support it, a good business plan, and the courage to seek out lenders and investors, you have the edge, and you will be able to soothe the nervousness of your money sources and find people who will buy into your idea. Let me tell you about how Bruce David got the capital to buy the landmark King Mansion to develop a bed and breakfast and conference center. He used a strategy I've taught for years that is included in the money system. Here's how it works. The issues that Bruce dealt with effectively and that you have to deal with are, first, how to get the money, 2, how to satisfy the people providing the capital, and 3, how to accomplish this while preserving as much ownership and control for yourself as possible. In other words, the object is to give as little as possible to get what you need. In the money system, I suggested strategies incorporating the use of zero-coupon bonds. These bonds can be an inexpensive way to create value, equity, collateral, security, and guaranteed repayment almost out of thin air. Bruce used commercially available zero-coupon bonds to fully collateralize each investor's funds with guaranteed future repayment. In his case, rather than taking in investors in the business, he sold timeshare usage programs with the timeshare providing full value. But then, as the extra incentive for the prepayment, he gave each buyer a 20-year zero-coupon bond that would give them all their money back when it reached maturity. Rates vary. At the time, he was buying a reasonably high-rated zero-coupon bond worth $10,000 in 20 years for about $800. For exact numbers and options today, you'll have to get together with a broker. For myself and for clients, I've used these quite successfully in raising capital. The investor gets whatever the normal business deal is, interest or equity, stock options, royalties, plus a bond that gives him back all of his capital 10, 15, or 20 years later, regardless of whether the business or product is successful. This lets the investor get on the playing field with absolutely no risk of permanent loss and the possibility of profiting directly from the business deal, plus then having the bond pay off as a bonus years later. If there's an individual, for example, with money set aside or being accumulated for a young child's college education or for retirement or for some other set in stone long-term purpose, they can now take those dollars and use them for the risky investment, but know that no matter how that investment works out, the basic capital will be replaced 10 years or 15 years or 20 years later when they need it. The newest opportunity for entrepreneurs digging to raise money is a simplified way to register to sell stock legally called SCORE, the Small Company Offering Registration, available as of this recording in 21 states. It's important to note that there are federal and state regulations and laws covering the entrepreneur trying to raise money like a spider web. It's very easy to run afoul of these regulations. My own guess is that 70% of the business ventures are financed in violation of some law, and in most cases it doesn't matter because nobody knows about it and nobody complains. But I've also watched a businessman be destroyed, and I do mean destroyed, by criminal prosecution just for organizing 10 individual investors in a small business. So if you want to play it safe, you need to get solid legal advice when you assemble a plan to raise money. And now this SCORE program gets a lot of regulatory garbage out of the way. To give you an example of how this works, a small Washington state company, Laser Fabrication Incorporated, set out to sell $750,000 in stock to the public, even though their business was in the idea stage and they had less than $1,000 in capital. They used SCORE. SCORE allows for multiple state stock offerings with only minimal registration with the Securities and Exchange Commission. There is a standardized SCORE disclosure statement with only about 50 questions, and you can complete it yourself. Some entrepreneurs have done SCORE themselves and sold their own stock. Others have used lawyers and brokers. Going it alone works best for the business with a large group of customers or employees or distributors, some inner circle, if you will, to draw on as stockholders. Real Goods Trading Company, a California mail order firm, for example, made an 11-state $1 million SCORE offering to their 15,000 customers. This model represents real opportunity for the entrepreneur who has built a marketing enterprise to a certain level, but then needs a big chunk of capital to go farther. If SCORE is available in your state, you can get information from your state's security division. Regardless of whether you're looking for new venture, startup, bridge, or expansion capital, the best advice I could give you is to actively build and maintain your network of contacts. Late last year, I was reminded of this again. I was speaking for the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer clubs. And in one city's club, one business owner had gotten $500,000 of bridge financing from 3 other club members. Without his involvement in this organization, he might never have assembled that kind of money. I think you are well served by being active in local, state, and national trade associations in your industry, related industries, and organizations like the Chamber of Commerce, direct marketing clubs, even the CEO clubs. Patient development of relationships with worthy individuals you meet through these organizations is a good investment of your time and energy. At some point, your ability to get the money or the credit you need may very well come down to who do you know and who do you know who knows somebody. Also, make no mistake about this. Money is obtained from others in a proportionate relationship to the quality of your information and presentation. In your manual, I've reprinted a business plan example from my Getting Into Business guide. You'll see that the business plan is supported by considerable research and documentation. There's just no substitute for really doing your homework, then showing it off. Like it or not, your startup financing is probably going to be a bit of a mess. The 9th largest commercial airline in the world was started with the founders taking out second mortgages on their homes and maxing out all their personal credit cards. Putting together startup money with cash advances on credit cards has become the entrepreneurial norm. You'll also probably get money from friends or relatives who really can't afford high risk or long-term investment positions, and you'll be committed to impatient terms. All of this is often unavoidable, but it's important to look past it and get past it. That's why we need to talk about long-term business financing. I think the ideal and practical sequence is to go ahead and start out with your early financing in the patchwork quilt format, anything and everything, your money, family, friends, advance purchases, vendor deals, credit cards, and on. But be determined to get some long-term bank financing into the picture as early as possible, even if it's secured by your own or others' personal assets. It's very difficult to develop a business without a component of long-term affordable bank financing. So you need to start pushing that door open an inch at a time as soon as you can. In many cases, it's easier psychologically, emotionally, to get an individual angel, a backer, to secure a bank loan for you than to directly lend you his own money. His at-risk position is really the same, but it feels like less. Having a bank loan co-signed or collateralized by such a backer gets you in the door, gets a banking relationship established, and is usually a win for everyone involved. You should not hesitate looking to the government, specifically the SBA, as a means of getting going with a bank and getting financing. I've included some current information about SBA financing in your manual that relates directly to inventors and will help you get money and assistance for your inventing and entrepreneurial endeavors. One way or another, or with a combination of ways, getting a banking relationship in place is important to most entrepreneurs. This sets the stage for later replacement financing. It allows you to replace your early patchwork quilt of financing with a single commercial source with stable long-term financing within the first 5 years of your business. And this will allow you to lower the overall cost of the money, lower the monthly cost of servicing the debt, and lower the liability and accountability to impatient lenders and investors, freeing yourself from some stress. But this will not happen by accident. You'll need to target and nurture relationships with bankers over a period of time. Third, over the long haul, you'll want to develop as much internal financing capability as possible to reduce dependency on the banks and to build the value of your business. In the direct marketing field, where we can stay free of equipment and factories and other burdensome overhead and operate lean and mean, we have a great opportunity to accomplish this, to gradually develop enough of our own cash reserves and paid-for assets to operate and even to grow debt-free. A survey published in Inc. magazine asked owners of businesses in the $1 to $14 million a year range where they anticipated getting their financing for various purposes. 71% said from their own operating profits and cash flow, 58% from short-term debt, only 35% from long-term debt, and almost 47% said they would get some from private sources. My translation of all this is that only about 1/3 of these businesses have good, solid banking relationships. 2/3 have to rely on combinations of other types of financing. And when you see 70% relying largely on their own internal monies, you have to be impressed with the importance of high margins, good profitability, good cash flow, and getting to a low debt service cost position as quickly as possible. Over the years, I guess I've been involved in every kind of financing situation and banking relationship imaginable. In recent years, I've bit the bullet on growth in my own publishing company in favor of debt freedom and internal financing. Every approach has its pros and cons. But as you develop a business, considering what type of financing requirements it's going to place on you is important. You may choose to alter your business plan to avoid financing situations you find distasteful. I finally say that I know many business owners who've gotten considerable help with business planning, financing, establishing banking relationships, and many other needs through the SBA's SCORE system, the Service Corps of Retired Executives, experienced retired business people who donate their services and in most cases provide free consulting. I think this is an undervalued, underused resource you might want to consider for your own business. Well, all good things come to an end. We've covered a lot of ground, and I want to use the time we have in our final session to impress upon you one great golden principle of business success that may be contrary to your inventor's nature. Don't invent where and when it's not necessary. Copy. There is more money made faster going down roads already well-traveled than those less traveled. As my speaking colleague Tony Robbins says, success leaves clues. Tony talks a lot about modeling, finding somebody already doing what you want to do and modeling them. Later you can plus, you can out-innovate, you can do them one better, but in the beginning, follow in their footsteps rather than bumbling through the jungle, machete waving wildly, your bravery outshining your intelligence. So, some thoughts and cautions about modeling. First, let's talk about the riskiest and most expensive thing you can do, advertising to launch your product and sell it directly to end users. Presuming you have a high enough price and margin to support lead generation advertising and multi-step marketing, this is definitely the business model you want to follow. And you will want to be a prospect and customer of marketers using this approach so you can be exposed to and study every step of their process.
This is the end of side 1. Please turn the cassette over for side 2.
The lead generation advertising model is probably the easiest, simplest, cheapest, and safest approach, where you can learn a lot, work out all the bugs, and even develop a successful business for a relatively small cost. This model basically involves running small, inexpensive ads of one kind or another to get seriously interested and qualified prospects to step out of the crowd and identify themselves. Then you can convert those leads to customers through direct mail, a series of mailings, possibly other media or methods, even telemarketing. The one-step advertising model is certainly the simplest, most streamlined approach, but it's the hardest to make work. This is run the ad and get the order directly from the ad with no other steps involved. Joe Sugarman did it with his electronic product ads in airline magazines. Ted Nicholas does it. But making a one-step work is difficult. A variation of two-step and one-step is the one-step loss leader ad. Gerardo Jaffe made this work beautifully for his mail order companies, Haverhill and Hemp Hills, and it is one of the many important strategies presented in his outstanding book. The idea of the loss leader is to advertise something that is very appealing for a ridiculously low price so a lot of people respond. But instead of getting free information, they are parting with some money. This delivers an enhanced, more valuable lead, and it offsets some of the cost for lead acquisition. Direct response TV is a very attractive path because of its speed and massive influence. Most direct response TV spots or long-form infomercials are done as one-steps. However, there are notable, I think very instructive exceptions. Nordic Track uses a lot of television for lead generation. International Correspondence Schools uses television for lead generation. The infomercial I developed for the Go by the Inch business opportunity, which ran continuously for 8 years, did lead generation rather than a direct sale. The direct marketing business is rapidly becoming a world of complex, integrated, strategic alliances. Fingerhut, for example, the largest direct mail marketer of consumer products, got into infomercials with a strategic alliance with an infomercial company. Good news is that these relationships are readily available even to relatively small players. Another electronic marketing tool to consider is radio. Talk radio is booming. Its listening numbers are growing and are highly responsive, particularly to advertise products and offers linked to the personalities themselves. The Hooked on Phonics campaign using radio infomercials for lead generation has been fabulously successful. Local businesses linking to the radio programs immediately before or after the Rush Limbaugh show or the Howard Stern show on their local stations are discovering great opportunity. And we now see 30-minute long-form infomercials on radio gaining in popularity. Another electronic marketing tool is the Internet. In the past couple of years, this medium has exploded in growth, although not necessarily yet in practicality for marketers. The numbers fluctuate greatly depending on who you're talking to, but it's estimated that some 20 to 30 million people have access to the Internet. Approximately 2.5 million people made online purchases from the Internet in 1996 with sales somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 million. Now that's minuscule compared to the $57 billion in sales racked up, say, by the home shopping market, But sales did increase by 50% over 1995, and there are millions of consumers hooking up to the Internet between now and the year 2000. Recent studies revealed that 60% of today's online shoppers are between the ages of 30 and 49 and are typically married. Those who shop online average 3 or more purchases a year, and so there may be great opportunity here for you now or more likely in the future. Included in this system is free Internet software from America Online and a free space on the web to advertise your new invention or product. One of the most interesting media for consumer products and offers is package inserts and freestanding newspaper inserts. Usually what works in one will work in the other. The package insert business includes paid-for advertisements inserted in a company's product shipments or in credit card statements or in coupon packs like Valpak, Money Mailer, Advo, Larry Tucker. Freestanding newspaper inserts are the colorful half-sheets, full sheets, coupons, and flyers that come stuffed in the center of your Sunday newspaper. In these media, tests of 50,000 to 250,000 homes can be arranged for relatively small costs. Another popular medium for lead generation is the card deck. These are much more common in business-to-business marketing than consumer-oriented marketing. In my own experiences, the quantity of leads tends to be great, the quality relatively low, so the conversion rate will be considerably less than with other media. However, if you factor that into your economics and it works for you, then you'll probably find dozens of card decks you can use over and over again. Many card deck advertisers have been in the same decks time after time after time for 10, 20, even 30 years. Again, you may want to think twice about paying rate card instead of looking for standby and remnant opportunities. A model I get to work with a lot is the business opportunity model. There is an ever-increasing demand for packaged opportunities, plans, instructions, training, and support for home-based, spare-time, part-time, and full-time businesses. If you look at magazines like Entrepreneur, Success, Income Opportunities, even USA Today, you'll see such opportunities widely advertised. If you have products, methods, experience, and information that can be packaged as a business opportunity, these successful advertisers could be great examples for you. This could be a model that will work for you. Just as an example, there's a company that manufactures a simple little engraving machine. For many years, they sold this to small trophy shops, hardware stores, locksmiths, and gift shops for their use. In other words, they sold to the trade. Then somebody who understood the business opportunity field teamed up with them, made their machine portable, and used it as the basis for a business opportunity where an individual can take it to a location and do on-the-spot engraving or can work from their home and solicit engraving jobs. To the trade, they were selling their machine for $695. That same machine, plus with a business manual, a training video, ads, sales letters, and brochures packaged as a business opportunity, sells very successfully for $5,695. There is a different combination of these and other media and methods and models that fit just about every product. One of the things I typically do as a consultant is help the client sort all this out, establish the right priorities, point them toward the right resources, and develop a battle plan. Often this happens in a one-day consultation. I often tell my seminar audiences that I'm a big believer in theft. I don't know if I've ever had a truly original idea in my life, but if I have, I'm sure it had been very time-consuming and painful. It's much easier and safer to find something that really works, borrow it, adapt from it, just do it better. After all, Japan built their whole economy on this premise. However, let me caution you. You do need to be careful about taking the copycat route. If you don't do all of your homework, you'll make decisions based on only part of the picture. Let me give you an example. Ted Nicholas, the author of the book How to Form Your Own Corporation Without a Lawyer, is very well known for his full-page, copy-intensive ads in magazines, which he has used to sell over $200 million worth of products, including 53 different books and nearly 1 million copies of the incorporation book. But if you come along and copy his advertising style and his choice of media, you'll probably lose money. You know why? Because he buys most of his media at discounts ranging from 30% to 80%, mostly as remnant space. If you pay rate card, or even a rate card less an agency discount, you'll lose money and walk away shaking your head in bewilderment. Years ago, there was a guy running a full-page, $10 book ad everywhere, and lots of people copied him and lost money. What they didn't know was that he was losing money on every ad, too. But he planned for it. He did it deliberately and was making his money on renting out his huge mailing list. So when you set out to copycat an apparent winner, You better dig deep to find out as much as you possibly can and give yourself every possibility of success. So here are some tips to consider. First, track the advertising that's being done over as long a period of time as possible. If you're looking at ads, go back a year, 2 years, as far back as you can. Try and observe how the advertiser has changed his ad size, copy, headlines, choice of media, and so on. Second, answer the ads and buy the products. Get on the mailing list. Respond to the follow-up calls. Pretend to be a tough customer. Ask a zillion questions. Take the product apart and analyze why it's been put together the way it has. Third, if the marketer has revealed information about himself, take advantage. Look for interviews with him or articles about him in trade magazines, tapes of speeches he may have given, books he may have written. If, for example, you're interested in building a gift catalog business like Haverhill or Hemp Hills, or selling to such catalogs, you would go get Gerardo Jaffe's book on mail order, and there you'd find a very straightforward explanation of how he built his business. Fourth, don't expect to create $1 million winner without investing in some knowledge. Doctors and lawyers invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in their education, as do people in many other careers. Fifth, avail yourself of appropriate expert help. You already have access to quite a bit of help with the evaluation coupons, phone consulting, and other support included in this kit. But eventually, you will probably need to buy certain kinds of expertise. It is important to do your homework and thoroughly satisfy yourself about the credentials and integrity of any experts you engage. But don't be cheap about this. Experience purchased from legitimate experts and specialists is almost always less expensive than School of Hard Knocks experience. Finally, let me again encourage you simply to get into action, to get out from behind your inventor's workbench or computer and get into the sales and marketing world where fortunes are made. A final story. A young fellow I know invented a nifty little house or porch light that illuminated the address with solar power. Costs nothing to keep lit, easy to install because there's no wiring, and makes it easy for visitors or fire and rescue people to find the house quickly on dark nights. He took his product to retailers. They said it was too expensive and wouldn't sell by itself off the shelf. He took it to mail order houses. They said it was too bulky and heavy to ship and too expensive. He couldn't find a manufacturer to make it at a very low cost unless he invested in a warehouse full. So he started out making them one at a time in his garage, and he went out and sold them door to door, personally knocking on doors, demonstrating and installing the product. From that experience, he learned what questions people had, what they responded to, what they didn't, and so forth, and he used that information to create a strong sales letter and a brochure to begin selling his product by mail. He mailed direct to homeowners and followed up by phone with those who didn't order. In a short period of time, he built up a good little business, making first $1,000 a month, then $1,500 a month, then $2,000 a month, while still working a regular job. With that proof that he could sell these signs, he got investor money to accelerate his marketing, to secure his patents, and to do more efficient manufacturing, and sales soared. Soon retailers were seeking him out to stock the product, and in less than 3 years, he sold his company for a significant profit and a royalty. Along the way, he carefully and sparingly spent money on expert help, such as having me critique his sales letters. This is the entrepreneurial inventor. So much of all this is attitude rather than aptitude related that I would do you a disservice by not talking about the differences between the way successful entrepreneurs think and the way most other people think. There is a profound difference in the way the successful entrepreneur looks at himself and at the world. Years ago, the book I personally found most helpful in this area was Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. In fact, Dr. Maltz's works had such an influence on me that a couple of years ago, I organized a group of investors, authors, and speakers to acquire all the copyrights and intellectual property from Dr. Maltz's lifetime and to form a new Psycho-Cybernetics Foundation to republish all these works and promote Dr. Maltz's powerful teachings about the self-image and the psychology of success. With that in mind, the 6th cassette tape provided to you here is courtesy of the Psycho-Cybernetics Foundation and is an introduction to these concepts. If you find them helpful and provocative and would like to learn more, there is a complete home study course available from the Foundation. Or you can obtain copies of our books, the original Psycho-Cybernetics and Psycho-Cybernetics 2000, in most bookstores. This concludes our time together. I look forward to hearing of your success and maybe meeting you in person at a seminar or a conference. My colleague, Barry Smith, the president of Inventors Friend, is ready to assist you in any way that he can. Thank you for listening.